guys. I just need to say, this is one of the funnest interviews I've ever done in my life. Man. I'm not lying to y'all, bro.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, this is why I should have been Puerto Rican, bro. This is why.
¿Y qué está pasando? Y él dice, es que torneo dio positivo. Y yo, ¿qué? Positivo.
¿Te gusta?
Bueno,
la analítica o la información te gusta.
Bueno, con la analítica la gente no tiene que pensar tanto, ¿entiendes? Ya lo del baseball sense y todo eso, eso ya pues lo estás tirando a la borda.
Hermano, yo no quería firmar porque lo que ellos me estaban ofreciendo era, tú lo acabas de decir, $10,000, pero no me querían pagar mi educación. Wow. Y yo lo que le decía a ellos, oye, olvídense de darme bonos, paguen mi educación, porque yo quería que mi educación estuviera pagada.
No olviden que hay que pensar, hay que estar delante. Si ellos te están trayendo una mente y tú pones la tuya a funcionar, son dos mentes trabajando, eres más fuerte.
Y me dice ayer, oye cabrón, ¿verdad que va a hablar ya ayer? No te pares a batear, salte de ahí que esto está bien rico.
2017, eso siempre se me va a quedar. Ese clásico, demasiado en ambas, en la ofensiva y defensiva, o sea, tuve buen clásico y defensivamente ese clásico tuvo demasiado, viví mucho.
Era súper diferente y uno tirando 25 entradas en 60 juegos para un relevista es demasiado, porque en 60 juegos jamás tú vas a tirar 25 hits. Cogiendo la base y parándote y dándote un selfie.
He dicho nombre, no he dicho nombre todavía. Saludos mi gente y bienvenido a otro programa más de Me Gustan Los Deportes junto a Baerga y sus amigos. Este es su amigo de siempre, Arnold Palillito Santiago, dándole la bienvenida para que usted, mire, se prepare y escuche una entrevista Salón de la Fama. No le estamos trayendo una entrevista cualquiera, como siempre, una de las buenas para ustedes, una persona que de verdad usted se va a interesar mucho con su historia, así que ya lo sabe, quédese tranquilito por ahí, dele share, comparta este programa, pero ya le damos la bienvenida a mi partner de la cabina, el ex Grandes Ligas, Carlos Baerga. Saludos, Carlos.
Saludos, mi gente, saludos, Palillito. Qué bueno que estamos aquí compartiendo en la noche de hoy una entrevista espectacular que vamos a tener y también llevarle todo lo que está ocurriendo en el béisbol de Grandes Ligas. Va a ser algo súper especial viendo la historia de este hombre. Tuve la oportunidad de jugar con él, pero más impresionante es ver su historia y hoy nos la va a contar aquí con nosotros.
Bueno, ya lo saben, señores, lo primero que tiene que recordarse es, si usted necesita, Baerga, sellar su techo, hoy cuando le caiga una gotita viendo la entrevista que le tenemos para ustedes, usted lo que tiene que llamar, mire, a Crossco Puerto Rico, que tiene todos los productos de la mejor calidad para sellar tu techo. Cualquier cosita, mire, visite crosscopr.com y déjele saber qué Palillito y Baerga le enviaron para que usted vea que los trate, mire, a cuerpo de rey, Baerga.
Eso es así. Y si necesitas, sabes que tienes sed y no estás hidratado, tienes agua de coco Goya. Si es Goya, tiene que ser bueno. Es importante hidratarte en tiempos como este, que hace una calor terrible. Y si estás enfermo, ¿qué es lo que tiene que utilizar, Palillito?
Mire, usted lo que tiene que llamar rápido a Droguería Betances, la droguería puertorriqueña, todo lo que tiene que ver con medicina, cualquier cosa que tiene que ver con farmacia, usted tiene que buscar los mejores. Droguería Betances, Baerga, porque mire, tú sabes, Baerga, ¿quién estaba hoy buscando Droguería Betances?
¿Quién estaba?
Los Medias Rojas de Boston, que tienen casi un hospital lleno allí de COVID. Hoy fue el último, fue Jairo Muñoz, el dominicano, y eso pues nada, Baerga, entre lo negativo, pues hay que decir que lo positivo, Ernesto se le abre una puerta que lleva tiempo tratando de abrirla. Jack López lleva de 2-0 en el partido, pero está ahí, Baerga, ya está en las Grandes Ligas, Jack López.
Es como si fuera uno de los hijos de nosotros. De verdad que desde que lo vimos firmar, yo pensé que iba a llegar más rápido, pero algunas veces nosotros no entendemos los tiempos de Dios, y cuando Dios tiene un propósito con alguien, lo tiene. Ha sido un año espectacular con él, con el equipo USA Team, ahora en Grandes Ligas con el equipo de Boston. Y ¿sabes qué? Y la alineación de Boston, ¿sabe algo, Parillo? Te voy a decir algo. Schwarber, primer bate, puede cambiar todo un juego completamente. Vamos a ver. Yo sé que no es fácil perder 8 peloteros en menos de 5 días, pero tú nunca sabes lo que pueda pasar en el béisbol.
Eso es así, por lo menos, pues, ¿verdad? Behind the scenes, podemos decirle a Vargas que hoy pues estuvimos en contacto, siempre hemos estado en contacto con ellos, pero hoy tuvimos contacto con Quique Hernández, pues están bastante bien, espera que ya posiblemente sábado o domingo pueda estar de regreso con el equipo, lógico. Vargas nos dice que está como en una cárcel, imagínense lo que está viviendo en este momento nuestro Quique Hernández, pero sabemos que por lo menos está bien. Ramón Vázquez nos dijo ayer que se estaba ya sintiendo mejor. Lo demás, pues nada, Vargas, bregar con la situación. Me ha extrañado una cosita antes que vayamos a la entrevista, que no, Major League no ha decidido decir, mira, vamos a darle un día, por lo menos a este equipo de los Medias Rojas de Boston, Vargas, lo hicieron con los Yankees después de Juego Estrella. Darle aunque sea un día, porque eso no va a cambiar nada, pero darle un día que este equipo por lo menos no tenga que pensar en béisbol por un día, porque la situación está bastante difícil y esto es, definitivamente, esto ya es un outbreak, como llaman ellos.
Alex Cora me dijo que no va a pasar, no le van a dar el día, tienen que seguir jugando y el show continúa. Eso fue lo que le dijeron. El show tiene que continuar. Yo sé, hay reglas para uno, otros para no, pero hay que seguir hacia adelante. Lo bueno es que ayer los dedos estuvieron arriba, los caballetes estuvieron dando palos y ya todo el mundo está contento. Ya en Nueva York.
Eso es lo que tiene que ser. Pero señores, mire, nada, sin más preámbulos, si usted no sabe quién es el invitado de hoy, como siempre hacemos, aquí tiene un la.
Hit the third, speared there by Molitor. Can he throw him out? Got it.
There goes the runner, and on the hit and run, Molitor has his second hit of the night. On to third goes Bill Spires. Perfectly executed hit and run, and Molitor can do it as well as anybody.
Here comes Molitor to the plate. He is stolen home. The ball gets by Harper, and holding up at third base is Darrell Hamilton.
And Jackson has retired 8 in a row since the triple by Molitor. That's well hit to left. Incaviglia watches it go. Home run, Paul Molitor.
Kicks and fires, and Molitor swings, and it's a fly ball to right center field. Chased by the right fielder and the center fielder, and it falls in. Molitor for 2, Molitor for 3, and it could be history-making. It is. Paul Molitor is the first player in the history of baseball to get a triple on his 3,000th hit.
Bueno, señores, y aquí tenemos con nosotros el invitado especial. Bienvenido a Paul Molitor, Salón de la Fama, Hall of Fame member. Welcome to Me Gustan Los Deportes junto a Baerga y sus amigos.
Hey, good afternoon or good evening or whatever it is, man. I'm glad you guys have me on. Two things. Watching all your guests early on your clips, you guys have way too much fun on your show.
That's true. That's
the way we do it.
I was afraid that when you told me you were going to show video clips that they were going to be in black and white. So I'm glad that you got to.
My friend, what an honor. What an honor I have to, today that you are with us in our program is something that when I signed with the clip, when I got traded to the Cleveland Indians, that I got an opportunity to come up to the big leagues, I had to say right away, the best advice that Candy Maldonado gave it to me was this. When you finish practice, that was the first day, my first day in the big leagues, you're going to do this every first day. You're going to watch when Baltimore came in, Eddie Murray and Ken Rickin. When Milwaukee come in, you're going to watch Robin Young and Paul Molitor. I want you to see what they do stretching, what they do hitting, what they do fielding, how they prepare for the game. And God gave me the opportunity to play with you in the big leagues and watch you every day. That was something special. Thank you to be with us today, my friend.
Yeah, hey, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate that. You know, when you talk about that and how, Candy Maldonado, kind of gives you advice, I think everybody that gets to the big leagues, they got to have somebody that kind of shows them the way, right? And,
yes.
I used to do the same thing when I was young. I had older guys because I came in back in maybe 3 or 4 years. But you came in, what, about 1990 or so?
1990, yeah. My first year.
I had been there since 1960. I had guys like Sal Bando and Cecil Cooper and Larry Heisel and all those guys that kind of taught me the right way to go about it. And eventually you start to figure some things out. And, I know that those Cleveland teams you had back in the early 90s, mid 90s, you guys were loaded, man. It was always every time we'd have to go in to play you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to go ahead and let everybody know where do Paul Molitor was born, where you were raised, and all that, so everybody gets a little idea where Paul Molitor comes.
Well, I appreciate you asking. I was born in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, and I grew up there. High school, went to the University of Minnesota. I got drafted by the Brewers back in 1977. I was lucky. I only spent a half a year in minor leagues. I was in A-ball, and then the next spring training.
Wow.
That's
Baerga, it's so funny the way this guy, you go, I was lucky, you know what I mean? And I'm going, oh my God, I was there like 10 years in the minor league waiting for that.
Robin Jones said the same thing. No one there, but right away to the building. It was something special. But I want to ask you something. You something, my friend. When you was growing up, the baseball was the biggest thing for you, or you play other sports?
I love playing all sports. High school, I played soccer and I played basketball. But baseball was my thing. But growing up in Minnesota, you have a pretty short season. But following the Minnesota Twins when I was a kid, listening to the games on the radio when I was supposed to be doing my homework, anything I do, my dad would take me out to one game every year, and we'd go out to old Metropolitan Stadium, and that was back for your fans that have been around a while, the days of Harmon Killebrew and Tony Oliva and Rod Carew, and those are the guys that I found. Player, but of all the sports I played, Carlos, baseball was always number one.
I mean, we always want to let everybody know, especially the one in Puerto Rico and all that, Latin America. When you say Minnesota, guys, we're pretty much just talking about ice. Just think about ice. Open your freezer, and that's what these guys go through. I mean, I went to college in Iowa, so I do know how bad that could be. And I mean, Paul, it's something that I would like to know. I mean, how you as a young kid, and most of those kids around that area, how could you, I mean, do you really think that you could reach professional baseball when you come from those towns?
Well, I think it was, as a kid, it's more of a dream. You never know, you're never sure. We have a lot more guys that make the National Hockey League for Minnesota than we do Major League Baseball, right? Because you're right. I mean, the winters are long and they get cold. But I'll tell you one thing that helped me. I grew up about 5 blocks away from where Dave Winfield grew up. And he was about he was about 5 years older than me. And so I got to watch him on the playgrounds. I got to watch him play Legion ball. I got to watch him at the University of Minnesota. And when he went from Minnesota straight to the Padres, he never played a day in the minor leagues. And as a high school kid, that gave me hope. Kids from Minnesota can make it. So Dave was a big inspiration for me.
Wow, that's special. I don't even know that Dave lived, it was from there, and that you got the opportunity to watch him. You got picked by the Milwaukee Brewers on the 3rd overall selection, 1977. When that day, did you can explain to us that day and what it was for you and your family?
Yeah, well, Carlos, when you're kind of getting ready to head into that year of your draft, you try not to put a little pressure on yourself, but you do a little bit. And, I was hoping that I'd go somewhere in the draft. And I was having a good year at college, and I kept hearing that there were some teams that were pushing me up the board, but I wasn't sure how it was going to play out. And as it turned out, the number 1 pick that year was Harold Baines. And he was out of high school. He was out of high school from Maryland. And then I think the second player was a pitcher by the name of Bill Gullickson, who had a pretty nice career. And then I was the 3rd pick, and I think Terry Kennedy, who was a catcher for the Padres, was drafted 4th. So it was a pretty good draft. But we were kind of getting ready for the College World Series when the draft went down, and I was just super elated. I was still trying to focus on the College World Series, and I knew I wouldn't sign till that was over. But I couldn't wait to get my professional career started.
I mean, when you played college, I mean, how was that? Coming from high school, going to college, I mean, because we got a lot of kids that are watching, young people that are watching. Some of them in Puerto Rico right now, they have to understand that it's better now probably to go to college and try to get something out of it through there, because, the draft is getting short. it's getting tough for them to get drafted. But a lot of them are scared of going to college, thinking that it's a big change. I'm not going to be able to play baseball like I play in Puerto Rico. I don't feel the same way. I mean, for you, how was it? Because I know you went at least to your own state. You stay around your parents.
I did. I really didn't have many opportunities, scholarship-wise or anything, so I stayed home. But, my advice to the young people would be that it's a little bit intimidating, and it is a transition to go from high school and try to, enter some kind of college program. But really, it sets you up whatever way it takes you. If baseball continues to happen, the doors are going to open up. But if it doesn't, you've really begun to provide a foundation for you, whatever avenue life will take you, So I don't blame the kids that get drafted high out of high school for taking advantage of their financial position. Yeah. But really, for a lot of people, the college route, there's such good programs now. You play very competitively. You're getting your education, and hopefully, when your day comes at the end of your college times, you'll get a chance to move on, like I was fortunate enough to do.
Wow, Marty, watching your numbers and watching your career, right away you tell us about that you spent 1 year in the minor leagues, and right away you got called up. Half a year in the minor league, and right away you got called up. You hit 346 your first year. Not too many guys do that. 8 homer, 50 RBI, 40 stolen base. I always know that you were going to be a good runner. But, how was that experience your first half year in the minor leagues?
Well, it's funny. I know you had Robin Yount on at some point, right? So
last week.
He used to be kind of shy, but he's not too shy anymore. So it was funny because it turned out him and I both played 64 games in the minor leagues, and then we both made the leap to the big leagues. But when I went down, I played in Burlington, Iowa, in the Midwest League. Ooh. And I remember that some of my teammates warned me that they have a tendency to want to drill high draft choices, and sure enough, that first game I got smoked a couple of times, right? But it kind of broke me into professional ball, and we end up having a lot of fun. Second half of the season, we end up winning the Midwest League, and the biggest difference for me though was in college you play maybe one doubleheader on a Tuesday, and then you play weekend doubleheaders. Just kind of adjusting to playing every day. It was just a different playing shortstop back then, and learning how your body needed to really prepared to have a chance to be successful when you're playing that many games consecutively.
And Burlington, Iowa. Wow. Again, I mean, that's you're bringing back.
Ask you, man, what school did you go to in Iowa? I'm kind of curious.
I went to Centerville. It was a junior college, Division I, but it was junior college, Centerville, Iowa. I mean, and it was in the middle of nowhere. And we play our district. We had to go to Minnesota. We had to play in the Metrodome. That's where we play our districts. So I remember all that. Once you say Burlington, Iowa, we played there too. And it was fun. I mean, for people at home, those are tough places to be in the winter, guys. So it's amazing how to, we got a Hall of Famer. We got 2 Hall of Famers. They win for, like you said, from Minnesota. And it's definitely something about young kids who have it in their mind that it could be done. No matter where you're from, and you could do it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Dave and I both being from St. Paul, and now Jack Morris is from St. Paul. So now we got 3 guys. Yeah. There's a chance Joe Mauer might get in someday, and him and I went to the same high school. So, wow. Some good baseball players can't come out of Minnesota. We had Ken Herbeck, some other guys that are from the Twin Cities area. But I got to tell you, Dave Winfield and I, not only did we both go to the University of Minnesota, we both ended up finding our way to Toronto at some point. We both won our first World Series in Toronto. We both went back to Minnesota, and we both got our
3,000 hit. He's there. That's amazing. I was there. That's amazing. They was with me.
And that's amazing. The guy that grew up 5 blocks from me. So go figure. So
go figure. I mean, it's a movie. We could do a movie, Paul. We could do a movie because people would not believe it. I mean, when we interviewed Dave Winfield, we just couldn't believe he was a pitcher. And all of a sudden he gets drafted, and you pretty much just go straight to the big league. And you're gonna play outfield, buddy. You don't have to go to the minors or nothing. Just stay out.
Well, a couple things. the year that Dave went to the Padres, he came back for the All-Star break and he worked out with our Legion team, and that was pretty cool. Oh. But you know, did he talk about the game that he pitched in the College World Series against USC when he was on?
No, he was talking about how he was the best pitcher in college, but he didn't went to it.
So he's pitching against USC in the College World Series, and they had some big leaguers. They had, you know, Freddie Lynn and Rich Dower, and he's got a 7-0. He's got a 7-0 shutout in the 9th inning, but he's thrown like 180 pitches. So he gives up a couple runs. They take him out. They put him in the outfield, and then it gets to 7-6, and then they bring him back in. But they end up losing that game. The USC scored 8 runs in the 9th inning to beat them in the 7th.
Wow! Oh my God, that's what I don't want to talk about.
You know, Dave was a good college basketball player. He got drafted by the NBA. He got drafted by the NFL. He never played football, but they saw his body type and they figured he could probably be a good tight end. So he was an incredible athlete.
That was special. I got a question. You got invited the year after you had a year in the minor leagues. You got invited to big league camp because that's what Robin said. They always bring the guys the first round right away. You got invited. How you made that club right away?
Well, you know, to be honest with you, it was thanks to Robin. You know.
No, wait, Paul. He said you guys need to tell Paul that thanks to me, he made it to the big league. I mean,
yeah.
So it's about a week before the season's going to start, and I'm scheduled to go out to AAA. And all of a sudden, I show up one day, and Robin's not there, right? And everyone started speculating that Robin wanted to retire from baseball and go play golf.
Yeah.
But I think what really happened was I think he got hurt on his motorcycle. And he didn't want to, you know, come clean with that. So because of him getting hurt right at the end of spring training, 7 days later, I was playing shortstop in the big leagues. So he came back about a month into the season. I got off to a good start. I moved over to second base, and him and I played short second together for a handful of years before I started getting moved around. So he was right. Robin, you know, it wasn't for him, I would have had another year in AAA. So that was
that's special, man, to have something like that. And people need to hear this because there are things that happen in life that we don't understand. But you know what? It opened the door, you know, for us. It happened, you know, when I made the club because John McNamara fight with the front office because I was a good hitter, but they want to send me back to AAA. And McNamara said, no, I'm going to find the at-bats for that guy, bring it with us. I'm going to sit him down with me every day in the bench, and I'm going to give him some at-bats. And I bet you, and he said that to John Hart and Ham Peters, that was the president of the team. And he said, I bet you in the second half, he's going to be our second baseman. And he did it. And he did it. That's what happened. Things that you don't know, but you have to maintain yourself focused.
Well, you know what they say, you know, like you said, when the door opens, you can't just put your foot in there. You got to wedge it in there, you know. You got to take advantage, and you know, someone's misfortune is another person's opportunity, right? So, no one wants to see anybody get hurt for someone to get a chance, but sometimes that's how it works out.
No, that's how it is. I mean, once you get when just tell us about when you get your phone call, or that, you know, that the news that you're going to the big leagues. I mean, how was that for you? And who was that main player that when you walk in that clubhouse? I know you were with them in spring training, but spring training, well, it was kind of like, you know, spring training. I don't know if I'm going to be here eventually. But now that you are walking into a major league clubhouse and you are part of that team, which one is the guy that stuck to you that day and say, man, look who's here. So-and-so is here.
Well, a couple parts to that answer. I got called in and they told me I was getting sent down to the minor league camp and I was going to start the year in AAA. So I went back to the hotel, packed up my stuff, ready to head over to minor league camp. And I got a call that night and they said, we need you to come back for one more day to big league camp. And that was the day that I came back, and then Robin had his injury. So that was kind of weird. In our clubhouse, I'll have to tell you, you know, you have to be a little bit older, but the Oakland A's won 3 world championships in 72, 73, 74. Yep. I think they're the last team to win 3 in a row, if I can remember. So Sal Bando was the captain of that team. And when I went to my first spring training, the first day I drove into the parking lot, the first guy getting out of a car next to me was Sal Bando. And, you know, you kind of, all of a sudden, these people that you had kind of idolized and watched on television, all of a sudden you're sharing the clubhouse. And, you know, Robin Yount had been playing 4 years in the big leagues by the time I got there, and he was only 22 years old. So, yeah, you know, I knew all about Robin's story because you know, as a guy who loves baseball, when you hear about a guy coming out of high school and getting straight to the big leagues like that, it kind of gets your attention. So, you know, those were a couple guys. Larry Heisel was another guy who I had followed with the Twins. He was a great hitter. And the year that I went to Milwaukee, he had signed as a free agent with Milwaukee. So getting to know him. Yeah, it's just kind of that overwhelming feeling, as Carlos can tell you, when you first get into that big league clubhouse and all these people you've seen, all of a sudden they're there. So more highlights.
You see, enjoy the highlight. I mean, and for the people that are, of course, from Puerto Rico, Carlos, Sixto Lescano was in that team too when Paul Molitor started his career. I mean, but Sal Bando was, you know, for the people, just go to YouTube, look for the Oakland A's game. My dad, when he played in the big league with the Red Sox, he told me about Sal Bando, what kind of player he was, and all that Oakland A's team. So it's Sal Bando, one of the best.
About Sixto Lescano, man, you talk about a guy that was strong and had opposite field power, and he could throw in the outfield. He was a big part of that team the first couple of years I was there before he moved on. I have great memories of Sixto.
Yeah. Sixto was a great player too. So you made the first All-Star game in 1990. You can tell us when you got that call, you know, to be in the All-Star game, you know, what went through your mind? Because I know when you get to the big leagues, you know, you see a lot of great players. And you was playing in there. I can imagine you played in the last. Do you watch? I know you love Rock Carew when you was a young kid, but did you play against him or no? On the last part?
I guess who?
Rock Carew.
Oh yeah. You know, I played against Rod because, you know, he was another guy. Just when you used to watch the Twins, he won 7 batting titles, and you know, I really enjoyed base running, and he had set the record for stealing homes in a season and all that kind of stuff. and his life story has been something too, right? I mean, with everything he did in the game, and then of course having that heart transplant, you know, about 5 years ago. He's been an amazing story, but I've got a lot of respect for that guy.
Rod Carew, I mean, guys, you guys are talking about main guys, but it was interesting because you're talking about that All-Star game, Carlos, 1980, and as far as you didn't play in that game, Paul. I mean, as far as we know, you didn't get to go in that game, but they reward you in 1985 with another All-Star game, and they say, "Hey, you know what? We got a guy here named Fernando Valenzuela. Get on that bat."
I think he struck me out. If I can.
Well, I'm sorry.
That was kind of the height of Fernando mania, you know, and it was weird because it was in the Metrodome, so I was playing in my hometown, and you know, we had Mr. Pena behind the plate.
Was the catcher, Tony Pena, yeah.
That was a fun experience because both Morris and Winfield made that game too, and so we had, you know, 3 St. Paul guys playing in the All-Star game in Minneapolis, so that was kind of fun. But, you know, Carlos, I think you played in at least 3 All-Star games that I can remember.
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, the first one, I ended up getting hurt right before the All-Star game. It was out in Dodger. And that was the game that J.R. Richard was pitching in the twilight in Dodger Stadium. That was something. But I ended up playing in a few games. I never really did much in an All-Star game. I think I didn't have a ton of at-bats, but it was always a special treat to go and be around the best in the game. It's something that you never take for granted. I'll have to say that Fernando got me that day, but I remember taking the time a few years later, so I got him back.
Good. Hi, boy. That was
always
good.
have our paybacks, right?
But Baerga, it's nice. It's not what Paul is talking about All-Star game. I mean, because Paul, we're in a different baseball, different era. You were in this era too as a manager. So, once these All-Star games start clicking around and the time is getting close, then we start getting all these, I'm not going to play, I'm not going to show up, and all this stuff. And sometimes we as fans, I mean, the guys that we love this game, it kind of hurts. It hurts a little that we're waiting for that All-Star game. We want to see our guys there. And when it comes up, some of them just don't want to show up. But it's nice to hear, Paul, that, a Hall of Famer like you enjoy every game that you win.
Thankfully, there's not a lot of guys that voice that opinion of dissent because, as Carlos knows, and the fans really do make a game. Sometimes we're not happy with either how they act or, you get fights in the stands or, whatever happens. We saw what happens with the Mets the other day.
Yeah.
The thumbs up, thumbs down. But, if you get a chance to go there, represent, your family and your team and play there, it was always special. It can be a little hectic because, it's the middle of the season and 3 days off is pretty nice. But I always found it to be a really enjoyable experience. I got to play in some parks that back then before Interleague I wouldn't have had a chance to see, whether it was Pittsburgh or San Diego or some of those other parks, Cincinnati. So, I always loved it. It was great. And one thing about baseball, the NFL, the Pro Bowl was always kind of a joke. The NBA All-Star Game's kind of a joke. The NHL, the score ends up 15-12. But baseball is a legitimate game in the All-Star Game, and the best players are on the showcase. So I think it's a pretty special thing.
Yeah.
Paulie, you was a complete player. You was a complete player. When I said a complete player, you can play defense, but you can run, you can hit, and you can hit for power when you need for power. I love to watch you play when you hit a triple. Oh my God. I used to watch it. I'm running to get to the ball, but I was watching back. I said, look at him running. It was special. And you always was a good runner and great base stealing. Where you get that?
I think it's a blessing to have speed, and obviously it's a big asset in our sports if you can run the bases and steal a base. The video here is an inside park in the playoffs against but I always just really thought that base running was a way to show kind of your personality and be aggressive and have game awareness. I've taught base running now for a long time, and it's kind of a part of the game today that's lost a little bit of its. Everyone's we're rather they don't want to make outs on the bases anymore. They want to hit it over the fence, right? But I kind of miss the days when you had hit and runs and first to thirds and guys running the bases. Now they're a little bit more afraid to take chances. But I learned it. I had some great coaches when I was young. I was lucky when I got to the big leagues. The manager trusted me. I had the green light so I could run when I wanted to. And you start to figure some things out.
We're talking about, a person here, guys, that stole over 500 bases in the big leagues. I mean, because it's easy to forget that, Paul. I mean, over 3,000 I think you led the league in hitting in hits 225. I think you were already 49 years old. At least I felt that way when I was watching you. I was like, man, he's still playing. How could that be? But I mean, you did all that, so people forget about your, when you came up. You were a guy that was moving a lot. I mean, you were stealing a lot of bases. I know that you were in a team, the Brewers, that wasn't getting a lot of TV at that time, of course. After the 82, it wasn't the same with the TV. But, I mean, us that follow the game and, the ones that collect baseball cards, we knew about Paul Molitor's speed.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Carlos, you played, 15 years?
I played 15, yes.
Yeah. I ended up playing 21 years. So by the time I retired, I was 42, and I had spent half my life in the big leagues, right? So the numbers do pile up. There was a time I got hurt a lot when I was younger. I never thought about 3,000 hits, but it just, you just keep climbing those ladders. And but I was really, really hungry to try to get a chance to win, and that kind of kept me motivated. Finally got that chance when I was in Toronto in '93, but yeah, you know, you look back and some of your numbers are, you know, they're okay. You know, you find your way to where you're eligible to get voted into Cooperstown. And I never played to get to Cooperstown, but I'm really glad that it happened. It's a heck of a club to be a part of. I'll be headed out there next week, in fact, for the induction.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I haven't seen those guys for a couple of years, so I'm really looking forward to that too.
Paulie, you're amazing player, and I have to say, you are one of the 5 players, the Ty Cobb, Hunter Wasner, Eddie Collins, Ichiro, and you, 3,000 hit, 300 average, and 500 stolen bases. That's a group. That's a special group right there. But you own a record, like Palillito say, you are the only player they have 9 homers 1 year and 113 RBIs. That it is amazing. I was talking like 2 hours ago with Juan Gonzalez, and I always call Juan Gonzalez when I'm reading a story like you guys, and I say, Juan, look at this, and I say, Carlos, he was amazing. I love the way he don't even step. He just go rah, you know, to the ball. He love it. And we talk about Paulie. I don't understand. You see the numbers now of players getting 25 homers, 53 RBIs, and the people talking about to be an MVP. How you can be an MVP so you got 53 RBIs? When you got 9 homers, 113. What was your philosophy on that?
Well, a couple things. First, Juan Gonzalez, he was an amazing player. I think one of the things I remember was a home run he hit in the All-Star home run in Baltimore. And that's the only ball I ever on the third deck there. He had amazing. But you're right. I see a lot of guys that do hit 20, 25 home runs, and they drive in 50 runs, and they just don't get a lot of hits and they don't drive in runs unless they hit it over the fence. You know, I think the year that I did that, I think that was the year that I was turning 40 or whatever. I never had a lot of power, but I certainly didn't have much left when I was 40. So if you're going to drive in 113 runs and only hit 9 home runs, you know, you're going to know how to get a 2-out base hit. You're going to know how to get a guy in from third with less than 2 outs. You got to make your hit. You got to make your hits count, right? And obviously, we had some guys that had some good years that year. Chuck Knobloch, I think, scored like 140 runs or something like that. But you don't see it too often where a guy hits less than 10 home runs and still drives in 100. So that was a lot of fun, especially doing it at a latter age like 40.
No, and for people to know, I mean, that year you hit 335 with running scoring position. I mean, you drove in 98 of those runs. So as soon as somebody was in scoring position, here comes Paul and he's ready to go. And you only struck out 26 times.
That's amazing.
Close to 244 plate appearances. I mean, like you said before, you played for a long time. You played until you were 42. So you were, you know, you were playing for a while. But you never struck out more than 100 times. You know, I mean, you never got to 100 times.
77 the most, Palillito.
Oh, no,
77.
You guys both know the game's changed. The strikeouts aren't really an issue anymore. But the disappointing part for me is, the home run's exciting and all that. But Carlos, you would know from watching the game and following it and broadcasting, a lot of these guys, they just don't know how to, try to make sure they give them the best chance to get a hit. You know, you give up some power thought process and just focus on being able to hit more than one pitch and giving it back. You know, you recognize maybe it's a line drive to right, maybe it's up the middle, but there's something about guys that can get a 2-out base hit to drive a run. There's a few guys in the leagues that are power guys. Nelson Cruz, another guy who's playing into the 40s. I mean, he's got unbelievable power numbers, but you watch him with a guy on scoring position with 2 outs, he might hit a homer, but he's not thinking about it. He's trying to figure out how to get that guy in. I got a lot of respect for how he goes about his business.
That's something special when I see players like that. You know, they when they talk about, you know what Robin Young say? Robin Young got 93 strikeouts, and that year he almost retired. I feel like I was disappointed, and I hit 300. That year he had a good year, but the strikeout make him feel bad on himself. And the thing is, now you see players, they strike out, they go to the bench, they happy, looking to the camera, like happy like nothing. You know what? I was feeling bad myself because I leave that runner in third base. That's something that you have to have in you, in there, to bring that runner in. My friend, you make 7 All-Star games, 4 Silver Slugger, but you play in a World Series with Toronto Blue Jays, winning that World Series, my friend. Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, you know, I had been in the World Series in 1982 with Milwaukee, and I was pretty young then, but I didn't realize I'd have to wait 11 more years to get back into one. You know, I really tried to just slow the game down to make sure that I savored every moment of being in that World Series, because I really was grateful that I got a chance to get back. It was my first year in Toronto. We had a great team, with Robbie Alomar and Devon White and Joe Carter and John Old, Ricky Henderson. We had, our first 3 hitters are in the Hall of Fame. It was a pretty good team. And we had a team that had a bunch of characters too, with John Truck and Lenny Dykstra and Dave Hollins and Darren Dalton. I mean, Pete Incaviglia, they were a bunch of characters too. So, but yeah, it was special because when you leave Milwaukee, 15 years, obviously you have a connection to the city. It was tough to leave. And I wondered for a long time if I had made the right decision. But as the season unfolded and I got comfortable up in Toronto, the fans kind of embraced me and we won. So I will always be grateful for the Blue Jays giving me that chance. And it was fun because it's only one of, I think, 2 World Series in history that ended up on a home run, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Bill Mazeroski in 60 or 61 and Joe Carter in 1993. And I was lucky enough to be on first base when he hit it. I always tell Joe, we won the game, I think it was 8-6, but I actually scored the winning run, even though he.
You just want to make sure that he knows that. I mean, Joe, we had Joe here, so now we know. I mean, but Paul,
we got Joe here, Paul.
We did. But so everybody knows, 1982, when you played that World Series with the Brewers, you still hit 355. It's not like you were, having a bad World Series. But this one in 93, I mean, you hit 500. 28 player appearances. You didn't strike out once. I mean, how was it for you, like in the batter's box? I mean, was it everything just come to you, or it was just one of those? I don't know. Feels like one of those series that you were in another world.
Well, first of all, I was glad Philadelphia beat Atlanta because I didn't want to face their pitching staff. So I was good about that. And I don't know if there's any real explaining it, but at that latter stages of that season, Carlos has experienced it, and it's you can't put it in a bottle, but sometimes the game just gets to where you feel like you have time in that batter's box. And I was taking close pitches off the plate. I was squaring up pitches there, and I was, it was just a good thing, and I was pretty locked in, and it doesn't always happen that way. And it wasn't because I was, a good postseason performer. It just, I was lucky at that time of the year, in that time and space, I was at my best, and I was reflected. We had a lot of guys that could have won the MVP. I mean, Joe obviously had a great series and hit the game-winning homer. Yeah. I think Devon White and Robbie both had great series with driving runs and scoring. So the MVP trophy is nice, and I still got it here in the house, but the World Series trophy is even better, right? So
that's awesome.
On my mantle. So,
Paulie, you give me advice. I remember that was my 4 year in the big leagues that I never forget about. First of all, you was one of my idols. Remember when Candy talked to me about you? From that day on, I follow you, stuff like that. But you give me advice that I never forget about, and you say to me something that I still have it, and I still use it with the young players. I say, when you are struggling, you know what's going to be your lifesaver? It's going to be that bunt.
Yeah.
For base hit, when you are struggling, because when you get to first base and you get a base hit, you're going to forget about everything, and you want to pump it up. I got a hit, so I want another one. So you got something in there that you can use anytime when they forget and they play back. And watching baseball right now, they shift right now. And I see players struggling 0 for 20, 0 for 25, 1 for 30, and they don't even try.
I know.
Do you like that stuff?
I'm not a fan of some of the things that our game has evolved to. I still think little things matter, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, it wears on you if you go 15s or 2 for 30s or whatever. And that bunt, it's just a nice thing to have in your back pocket. And in today's game with the shift and these guys that either they're afraid that they're going to make an out if they bunt, or they just don't want to give up a swing with the 1% chance that they might hit a homer. But I'm glad you remember that. And Carlos, I got to tell you that when you came in, maybe we had the conversations about bunting and about different parts of the game, but you wanted to compete like crazy, but you always had respect around the cage. You always had a smile and a handshake. And those guys that taught you those things, man, I think the guys that played against you realized that. And that's why I think after all these years, 30 years, we're still friends, man, because we kind of figured that stuff out and we had the right guys teaching us. So I respect the heck out of you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Palillito, he was one of the ones that came to Puerto Rico to play in my celebrity softball game. Paul Molitor was here in Puerto Rico, my friend.
Hey,
my first trip to Puerto Rico, thanks to Carlos.
Yeah.
That was your first trip, you see? I mean, we love it. I mean, that's nice. Hey, Minnesota, Puerto Rico, you definitely enjoy that. I'm pretty sure you did enjoy that.
We went back down there a couple of years ago. We had a two-game series against Cleveland when I was managing the Twins.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. I remember that, yeah.
It was unfortunately there was storms and the power went out in my office, and I had this little candle light when I was writing out the lineup card. But we got the game. Everything was good, and people love to see people like Rosario and Barrios and Lindor, and it was just a tremendous atmosphere. So there was a few years in between the softball game and the Twins playing down there, but both times I had really good experiences for sure.
Paul, I mean, let me ask you before we end the show and all that. I mean, you got to manage in the big league. You got to manage in the new baseball, pretty much, in the new era of baseball, whatever they call it now, because it's a weird one. I know for us, the fans, but you got to watch that. I mean, how tough was for you the first year when you managed in the big league and the hitters were, because I mean, you were one of the greatest hitters in the game, and the hitters wasn't, they weren't doing things the way you would probably, would like them to be doing it. How tough was to try to tell yourself, this is a different baseball right now?
It's different. A couple of thoughts about that, really. I had been in player development for a long time. I had coached a couple of years in the big leagues. That the one thing you do when you get into teaching or coaching or managing, you can't try to think that everybody's going to be like you or do it like how you would do it or how you did it. You kind of take that person for their skill set and you try to find a way to bring it to the surface. So I never tried to compare myself to players that I coached or managed. And I was also lucky because a lot of the Twins players that I had, the younger players, I had been around them a lot in the minor leagues. Sano and Polanco and Kepler and Rosario. I had all those guys, right? So I had relationships with them, and I think that made it easier, even though I was starting to get a little bit older. And I still, when I see those guys, it's always a big hug and really enjoy that. But I think the biggest thing I learned as manager, the first year was tough because things get going kind of fast, is that you're trying to make these young men better men. And if you make them better men, they're going to be better players. And that's just how it works. And I'm glad the Twins have had some success, maybe not this year, but, a couple of years ago, they set the record for home runs, and a lot of guys are doing some special things. So I'm grateful that, managed for 4 years for the team that I grew up rooting for as a kid, and we did make the playoffs one year, which was a lot of fun. So I enjoyed having that opportunity. So.
And you win the Manager of the Year 2017.
Yeah.
But 2004 became in July, something happened that I bet that you're never going to forget about. 2004, you got picked to be in the Hall of Fame. When that moment came in, what went through your mind? You watched so many Hall of Fame ceremonies that day. What went through your mind? You can let us know.
Yeah, you know, in 1999 was the first time I ever went to Cooperstown when I went in. I hit George Brett and Nolan Ryan. And so I got a chance to kind of see the environment and what was going on. And then when I retired, you know, everyone said, you know, you're going to make it, you're going to make it, but you never know for sure, right? And I was a designated hitter a lot. There wasn't a lot of people that had compiled a lot of their stats in the DH role. I just wasn't sure, you know. So that first year, you know, they tell you to be ready in case they call. And I had my family together, and you get the call, and it's really overwhelming. I think that to share it with the people that are closest to you makes it really special. But then you have 7 months to have to start to think about what you're going to do, right? So the phone call was amazing. The first experience out there as an inductee, they do a great job of making everybody feel welcome. I've had a chance to become friends with people that I idolized as a kid, you know, Sandy Koufax and Willie Mays, and you know, just all the guys that I watched as a kid that are in the Hall of Fame. And then your contemporaries, the guys that you played against that are in there. It's just a really special group. We talked about the induction coming up with Jeter going in, my old teammate Ted Simmons going in. I can't wait to see. So it's always a special time of the year when you're around that group. And like I said, I never played to be a Hall of Famer, but just tremendous gratitude that I'm a part of that fraternity.
Paul, okay, let me ask you, since you've been doing everything, you've done everything in the major, in baseball, in the MLB. I mean, it's baseball going is heading the right way, or if there's something you would try to change if all of a sudden you are the guy that could change something in baseball right now?
I'm concerned as a fan of the game that it's become more difficult to watch. It's aesthetically unpleasing. It's slow. There's not a lot of pitches put in play. Base running is kind of non-existent. I understand analytics. I use them as a manager. I just think that we've kind of jumped to the extreme of what we're trying to do with our game. You can't computerize players. They're still people. And I'm hoping that somehow we can find a way just to make the game more enjoyable and it has better flow. You know, we all know about the 3 true outcomes, the walk, the strikeout, and the home run, and they're always going to be a part of the game to some degree, but it's just become a less action-oriented game. And I think in today's world, social media and young people, they don't have the attention span to watch it, and we're going to lose a lot of fans. So I think that they're experimenting with, you know, some of the rules in the minor leagues and different things is good. I'm not sure it's all going to work at the major league level, but we have to stay creative and innovative to try to find a way to make our game a little bit more pleasurable to watch. That's what I think.
I know you love to watch the game, and sometimes I know you're a busy guy, but who you like to watch? What player you like that's playing right now?
Yeah, you know, being a Twins guy here and still doing some work for them, I follow them closely. So I had Byron Buxton since he came into our system. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of injuries, but he's one of my favorite people and players to watch. Obviously, I mean, you talk about a guy that can impact the game in so many ways, right? The power and the base defense. So he kind of sticks out for me. I'm trying to think when I think about other players around the league. I love Mookie Betts' game. You know, I watched him a lot in Boston. Managed against him. He's another guy that even though the game's evolved like we talked about, he does a lot of little things that really separate him, whether it's on defense. I don't know if you guys remember in the postseason last year, he ran a couple contact plays and
you gotta teach that, man.
And they were borderline plays, and every time he got a good jump and he would just beat the throw, right? So he's another guy that I really like to watch play. Tatis is another guy that's off the charts with talent. Yeah. So there's a lot of high-end guys, and I think they're going to carry the torch well for our game, and we just have to keep finding ways to build around them. So.
Okay, Paul, I can't let you go because I know all the fans would like to know what you think about it. I mean, what do you think Jose Berrío needs to be an elite? I mean, he's pretty good pitcher right now, but what do you think he needs to be that elite guy in the major leagues?
Yeah, you know, I love Jose, and I had him, and he took the ball every time for me. He had some really good runs and some that were a little bit more, you know, inconsistent. I don't think that he has to try to jump to be one of the top 10 starters in baseball. I think he's kind of settling into one of those guys that can be a number one, a really good number two. He's super motivated. He takes great care of himself. He's accountable. I think the pitches that he has every once in a while, you know, he'll back up that breaking ball, that changeup command gets lost. But I'm glad that Toronto got him. I think, you know, the last game he pitched, he was outstanding. But you know, I want to say that he can't jump to the very top, but I just think he's one of the high end pitchers. He's an all-star pitcher. I don't know. I think kind of he's going to be who he is, which is a really, really good major league pitcher. So that's
the way I think about him. I think he got everything. He just need to finish. I think one thing Carlos Bertrand said this to him in the offseason. I said, you work out too much sometimes. And you need to know during the season you have to slow down at the middle of the season a little bit because you're gonna get tired. Your body gonna wear down, and you think you're gonna feel strong, but it's not gonna be strong. So that was the best advice that I ever heard, you know, from Carlos Bertrand. Say that to him. Look, let's see what happens. He's a good kid, and I love him. Paulie, we want to say thank you for the opportunity, for the great interview that we had today. We are blessed to have a Hall of Famer, a friend, a man. When you see a guy that got 5 times in his career, 200 hits, 13 times hit 300, 114 triples, 504 base stealing, just 75 strikeout the most, 77 strikeout the most, 7 All-Stars, 4 Silver Slugger, World Series MVP, 2004 Hall of Famer, Manager of the Year 2007. Wow, I can keep going every day to talk about this guy. Amazing. And one of the ones that I really like, he hit 200 hits when he was 40 years old. The only player, and he hit 225. 225. You know what Francisco Lindor said to me on 2019 when he still was the last year with Cleveland, 2019 in spring training. He come and say, "How you hit 200 hits?" I said, "You know what? You need to hit the ball to the other way, to everywhere, gap to gap, and you need to bunt. When you bunt, you make everybody come in, and you're gonna get the holes." That was my advice to him, and you did it when you was 40 years old. 225, man. God bless you. All the best for you. Thank you for the opportunity, brother.
It's great. It was great talking the game with you, man. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to seeing you down the road. Palillito, it was nice to talk with you as well, brother.
Nice. Hey, so people know you had a 39-game hitting streak too, guys. I mean, you might not see that again just because the way baseball is right now. I mean, what was the toughest thing for you during that streak before we go? Because I see some fans talking about it. What was the toughest thing for you? Because right now it probably would be an iPad or something would be the toughest thing for you.
The other day was kind of the anniversary of the day the streak broke, and I was in the minor leagues talking to some kids, and I mentioned it to them, and they said they're happy when they get hits in 5 games in a row. So the biggest thing was, I'll make it quick, was that remembering you were out there to help your team win the game, and if you got a hit to keep it going, that was great too.
Awesome.
Wow, 39, and then you were close to get to 40. I mean, you were close, but then there was a walk-off wing, and you stay on deck, and you weren't able to get that at bat.
You guys know John Farrell, right?
Yeah.
He stopped my streak, so.
But that was nice. That was nice. Well, thank you for being here with us. God bless you, like Baerga said, everybody. I will see you down the road and enjoy the Cooperstown thing that you're gonna have now with Derek Jeter there. I mean, that's just nice. And Ted Simmons, one guy that I think he should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago.
Yeah, you're right. I'm looking forward to that. And again, thank you guys for having me. God bless you guys too.
I appreciate that. Señores, vamos a una pausa y regresamos en breve.
Yo estoy como Coco. ¿Y tú estás como Coco? Hidrátate naturalmente con agua de coco Goya. Si es Goya, tiene que ser bueno.
Cada mañana, en Droguería Betances, salimos con entusiasmo y dedicación para llevar salud a cada rincón de Puerto Rico. Llevamos más de 50 años entregando medicamentos y productos de calidad a cada familia puertorriqueña a través de más de 700 farmacias de comunidad. Ese es nuestro compromiso. Droguería Betances, llevando salud a todo Puerto Rico.
Bueno, señores, regresamos después de la pausa y de verdad que sí, si usted acaba de sintonizarnos, pues ya sabe que tuvimos hoy la entrevista de otro Salón de la Fama Paul Molitor, uno de los mejores bateadores que ha dado el béisbol de las Grandes Ligas. Y de verdad que, Baerga, disfrutamos un montón porque pudimos, ¿verdad?, hablar con Paul Molitor, ¿verdad?, con su experiencia como dirigente, su experiencia, ¿verdad?, como jugador. Oye, pero Baerga, lo interesante es lo fácil que vemos el estrellato a veces en algunos jugadores y uno tiene que esperar 10 o 12 años para darse cuenta, porque Baerga, año y medio en las menores, par de semanas en las menores, pues tú tienes que ser un caballo.
De verdad que Milwaukee tenía un ojo de águila con estos jugadores, porque de verdad que es increíble. Medio año en Liga Menor y rápido para Grandes Ligas. Eddie Robin John, desde que ellos lo vieron, dijeron, estos tipos están en otro nivel, vamos a subirlo. De verdad que es impresionante. Palillito, él está en el equipo All-Time Team de Major League Baseball, ¿sabes? Esto, estar ahí es especial. Fue escogido entre Sporting News de los 100 mejores peloteros en la historia de los peloteros de Grandes Ligas. Cuando tú ves los números, oye, él está número 9 en hits, Palillito, 3.339 hits, si no me equivoco. ¿Dónde está? Sí, 3.319 hits en las Grandes Ligas, 1.307 carreras empujadas, 306 el averaje, como dije anteriormente, 5 veces 200 hits, 13 veces 300. De verdad que impresionante carrera, y bases robadas sobre 500. No son muchos los que hacen eso, y este hombre lo hacía. Era un hombre que tomaba ventaja de todas las bases, y de verdad que me encantaba porque el hombre era calladito, Palillito. No hablaba mucho. Él no hablaba mucho. Él enseñaba con el bate. Eso era lo de él, más nada.
Y Baerga perdió casi año y medio en aquella temporada que se lesionó para allá para 84, 83, si no me equivoco, que quién sabe, ¿verdad?, si hubiese podido llegar a 3.400 indiscutible, un poquito más, y donde estuviera, pero definitivo, no se olvide de Paul Molitor, chequee los números, búsquelo en las redes sociales, donde usted lo pueda conseguir, para que vea de verdad que era un pelotero completo, y era un individuo que no estaba pensando que si lonchango, que si nada de esto. Baerga era darle a la bola, que la bola no te gane, darle para todos lados, si tenía que tocar, tocaba, y 500, o sea, robarte sobre 500 bases, Baerga. O sea, por eso está en la lista con Ichiro Suzuki, y usted no cree que puede estar en la misma lista por la velocidad.
Palillito, pero es que el récord ese de 40 años, mire, él fue un pelotero que tuvo unas cuantas lesiones, no fue que no se lesionó, pasó, tuvo que cambiar de base, tuvo que convertirse en DH porque sabes que se lesionó su hombro, no podía tirar de tercera base, era que completamente tuvo muchas lesiones, el hamstring también, muchas lesiones que tuvo en la Grandes Ligas, y cómo poder mantenerse y hacer todo esto, de verdad que es impresionante, una carrera estupenda la que tuvimos, Palillito, de verdad que es una noche súper especial, como dijo Palillito, si usted entró tarde, vaya a nuestro YouTube y allí usted va a poner Paul Molitor y allí usted va a ver la entrevista completa, una entrevista súper especial, sumamente humilde. Me encantó, la disfrutó Palillito, fue algo súper especial. Nada, Palillito, yo creo que están pasando muchas cosas ahora mismo en el béisbol de las Grandes Ligas. ¿Qué hacemos?
Bueno, esté pendiente a ver si de verdad como una media hora podemos estar por ahí con ustedes. Aquí está lloviendo un montón. Así que vamos a verla, Baerga, por si acaso la gente dice, Palillito, que está lloviendo, señores. O aquí la señal se pone media loca. Ayer estábamos en vivo y se nos fue de momento. Y estamos aquí. Pero yo creo que media hora por ahí, para estar un ratito con ustedes. Sabemos que ya nos escribieron por ahí que los Yankees ganaron, amén.
Ganaron.
No sé por qué, Baerga. Ellos lo escriben como que nosotros pensamos que nunca más van a ganar, señores, suave. Perdieron 4 nada más.
¿Y con quién ganaron? Perdóname, ¿con quién ganaron? ¿Con qué jugadores? Metieron a Odor, metieron a Chihuahua, lo metieron a Chihuahua, metieron a todos.
Luke Boy creo que pegó el hit de 2 carreras rápido para darle la ventaja. Y para que sepan, Luke Boy ha jugado con el de hoy 7 juegos de los últimos 9, o sea que, había estado sentado 7 de los últimos 9 porque había venido de bateador emergente, así que casi no ha jugado completo, y no se Baerga, yo sigo diciendo que él tiene que estar en el line-up, al igual que Rizzo, Stanton, ellos tienen que buscar la manera que esos bates estén ahí, pero, ¿verdad? Ellos son los que saben.
De 3-2 los voy hoy, 3-2, 2 carreras empujadas.
Y el juego creo que se acabó
4-1, Gerrit Cole vuelve otra vez a lanzar bien. Palillito creo que se está separando de todo el mundo para el Cy Young, está lanzando espectacular después de aquel momento difícil que tuvo a mitad de temporada. Él ha estado imparable y entiendo que él debe ser el ganador del Cy Young. Hoy tuvo, a rayo Palillito, 15 ponches hoy.
Sí, no, estaba en su... Sí. Acuérdense que ahora estos lanzadores, Baerga, que yo sé que ellos no lanzan para el Cy Young, pero sí lanzan, Baerga, para ser el mejor, aunque se ganen el Cy Young o no. Y yo creo que hoy él quería, ¿verdad? Como se ha mencionado mucho, Robbie Ray, porque en sí Lance Lynn ha estado ya se lesionó un poco la rodilla. Sí, todo es Robbie Ray. Como mucha gente está hablando de Robbie Ray, yo creo que él dijo, bueno, pues... Hoy es contra California, hemos perdido 2 contra ellos, no nos van a barrer, yo soy el número 1 y yo hoy voy a poner mis zapatos, como uno dice aquí, en esta loma y nadie me va a coger.
Eso era lo que hacía tu papá cuando tenía que ganar el juego grande, esos tipos no pierden. Eso es lo que él hacía, se ponía las botas y vamos por encima, este juego es mío.
Así que hay que ver a Robbie Ray si está listo para esta pelea, para este premio. Porque la próxima salida de Robbie Ray, yo no sé si él pichaba hoy porque no verifiqué, pero cuando pichara Robbie Ray, tiene que venir a machar lo que hizo Gerrit Cole, mejorarlo, pero son 15 ponches, señores. Baerga, antes de irnos, hablamos los otros días de Blake Snell, que pichó hasta la 8ª entrada, le dieron el cuadrangular.
Te llamé anoche, mira, yo no podía creerlo, yo estoy viendo juego. Y ¿sabes qué? Harold Reynolds le dice, que no se atreva a sacarlo, que no se atreva a sacarlo, caballo, y la cámara estuvo ahí, mira, yo te lo envié, yo te envié el video, te envié el video anoche, yo no podía, mira el video cuando él llega al dogado, que lo está esperando el dirigente, él lo mira, y mira para arriba, mira el pichico, y dice, no puede ser, bueno, Tati se puso las manos así en la cabeza. Tati, chequeando el video que yo te envié.
Pues lo voy a chequear porque lo que quiero añadirle a lo que Baerga está diciendo, señores. Pichó 8 y vieron 7 entradas en 0 no-hitter. ¿Sabes? No se lastimó, que piché. Si él puede tirarte las 8, Baerga, lo vas preparando. Y especialmente ahora en septiembre. Si usted es como Atlanta, ya es diferente, Baerga. Atlanta está pensando tener 6 en la rotación, una rotación de 6 para prepararse, pero este equipo de San Diego no está para prepararse, están a 10 o 12 juegos. Usted tiene que pelear ahora en ese wildcard que estaba en pata con Cincinnati.
Sí, tiene que matar.
Tiene que pelear y ese es el tipo que te puede ayudar.
Pues claro, tú tienes que estar matando, tú no puedes estar con esos inventos de estar esperando ahí. De verdad que ayer fue, bueno, la gente que estaba en MLB estaba encendido, porque la pregunta mía, ¿cuándo tú lo vas a dejar a él? No, y pusieron el video de cuando Catch lo va a sacar, lo pusieron rápido. Muchacho, a la soltada, lo mismo otra vez. Mire, dejen ese hombre que piché 9, que se sienta
Claro,
libre.
claro.
Pude llegar, nunca lo dejan.
Yo creo que Baerga, él tiene que llegar al parque, él, todos los días que le toque pichar, él tiene que llegar al parque con su premio de sayón. O sea, él tiene que demostrar, hey, yo soy sayón. O sea, yo lo gané, sayón. So, déjenme ser un sayón pitcher. Pero nada, de eso hablaremos ahorita, así que ya lo sabes. Pendiente por allí en Instagram, cójalo suave, Baerga. Gracias, ¿verdad? Por Molitor que estuvo aquí con nosotros disfrutando hoy. Así que nada, nos veremos entonces ya mismito. Y recuerde, esto lo puede ver por aquí en Facebook, Carlos Baerga, la página de Carlos Baerga. Dele share y compártalo también. Y también, si lo quiere buscar rápido, todas las demás, YouTube, canal de Me Gustan Los Deportes, y busque lo que usted sea. Ponga el nombre Carlos Baerga y ponga lo que quiera buscar. Y usted va a ver que va a estar ahí con nosotros. Así que, Baerga, colo suavecito y nos vemos ya mismito, hermanito.
Nos vemos ahorita. Dios me lo bendiga, mi gente.
Igual.
Yo estoy como Coco.
¿Y tú estás como Coco? Hidrátate naturalmente con agua de coco Goya. Si es Goya, tiene que ser bueno.
Cada mañana, en Droguería Betances, salimos con entusiasmo y dedicación para llevar salud a cada rincón de Puerto Rico. Llevamos más de 50 años entregando medicamentos y productos de calidad a cada familia puertorriqueña a través de más de 700 farmacias de comunidad. Ese es nuestro compromiso. Droguería Betances, llevando salud a todo Puerto Rico.